Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new edition of Cerebral Book Chat, Junior Edition. So, as we were doing before, we're going to be looking at a chapter from this book, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I thought that Halloween is coming up, and also it's just a very powerful time. Who else thinks it's a very powerful time? We're all kind of waiting with bated breath to see what's going to happen. So, with everything. Although I know, yeah. So, good things. So, anyway, I thought on that note, I wanted to read another chapter from this extraordinary book and the way they look at the Harry Potter universe and the Harry Potter, epic. So, and it's one of my favorite chapters, and it's very, just so comforting for me. I remember reading it, 25 years ago, and how Harry was able to eat as much as he wanted. And being Poe, as I was for a very long time, I know what that's like, to suddenly be able to have some stuff, and because I have it now. So it's wonderful. And so I thought I would do that. I was thinking I might do a Halloween one too, because of course there's a Halloween chapter, which again is very cool as well. So I might do the chapter on Halloween if anybody would like to do it. I loved doing the other one, and I actually got a lot of compliments from everybody. So I'm so happy to do it because it's something I love doing, and if people love listening to it, that just makes my heart beam. So I hope you do like it. I very much feel like I'm meant to be a speaker. I think that I am. And a writer and a teacher. So all those things. And more, because I'm very, very funny as well. So I thought we would do this today. It's very early on a Sunday morning. So I thought that I would do this in this early Sunday morning and see where we all are, and let me know in the comments how you're doing and if you'd like me to read a different chapter or maybe even a different book. That's something too. So this is what it looks like. Right here, the sorting hat, of course. And we know it's called the sorting hat because that's the big part of the chapter. But here's a question. What house do you think you'd be in? I mean, I think I'd either be in Ravenclaw or Gryffindor. Just because I'm very brave, I'm very honorable, I'm very, I care about justice and goodness and doing the right thing and standing up and doing the right thing. But I'm also crazy intelligent and very sort of book-like, so I could see myself. But again, absolutely can't do Ravenclaw because of the blue. If anybody knows me, I don't do blue. I don't ever do blue. So if Ravenclaw might want to change their color, maybe orange or, magenta, heck, even lime. I'd go with that too. So that's why. What would you be? That's a good question. Put it in the comments. What would you want to be? Okay. So let's have a read, everybody. The sorting hat. The door swung open at once. Okay, let me remind you, because you might what's going on? Okay, well, they're now at Hogwarts. They just gotten off the boats, because the chapter I didn't read was the chapter, the Hogwarts Express, which I absolutely love. I absolutely love the Hogwarts Express chapter. So fantastic. But I thought that I would do this one, because it's literally one of my favorites. So, of course, Ron has met Harry and Hermione, And they're not really friends yet, but they kind of know each other. And then Hagrid's picked them up at the station and is now taking them all in the boats across the I think it's Black Lake, to see Hogwarts all lit up. And I believe they only do that for the first years just because it's so captivating and, you know, majestic. So they're now waiting at the front door for, you know, Professor McGonagall to come. So that's what's happening. The door swung open at once. A tall, black-haired witch in an emerald green robe stood there. She had a very stern face, and Harry's first thought was this was not someone to cross. "The first years, Professor McGonagall," said Hagrid. "Thank you, Hagrid. I will take them from here." She pulled the door wide. The entrance hall was so big that you could have fitted the whole of the Dursleys' house in it. The stone walls were lit with flaming torches, like the ones at Gringotts. The ceiling was too high to make out, and the magnificent marble staircase facing them led to the upper floors. They followed Professor McGonagall across the flagstone floor. Harry could hear the drone of hundreds of voices from a doorway to the right. The rest of the school must already be here. But Professor McGonagall showed the first years into a small empty chamber off the hall. And in case you're wondering, a chamber is an old-fashioned word for room. That's really what it means. It means actually a big room or a small room, depending. So where are we? There we are. They crowded in, standing rather closer together than they would usually have done, peering about nervously. "Welcome to Hogwarts," Professor McGonagall said. "The start of term banquet will begin shortly, but before you take your seats in the great hall, you will be sorted into your houses. The sorting is a very important ceremony because while you are here, your house will be something like your family within Hogwarts. You will have classes with the rest of your house and sleep in your house dormitory and spend free time in your house common room. The 4 houses are called Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Every house has its own noble history, and each has produced outstanding witches and wizards. While you are at Hogwarts, your triumphs will earn you house points, while any rule breaking will lose house points. At the end of the year, the house with most of the points is awarded the House Cup, a great honor. I hope each of you will be a credit to whichever house becomes yours. The sorting ceremony will take place in a few minutes in front of the rest of the school. I suggest all of you smarten yourselves up as much as you can while you are waiting." And so this is their idea of what Professor McGonagall looks like. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, I don't know. I think I like the movie version better, but it's okay. Her eyes lingered for a moment on Neville's cloak, which was fastened under his left ear, and Ron's smudged nose. Harry nervously tried to flatten his hair. "I shall return when we are ready for you," said Professor McGonagall. "Please wait quietly." She left the chamber. Harry swallowed. "How exactly do they sort us into houses?" he asked Ron. "Some sort of test, I think. Fred said it hurts a lot, but I think he was joking." Harry's heart gave a terrible jolt. A test in front of the whole school? But he didn't know any magic yet. What on earth would he have to do? He hadn't expected something like this the moment they arrived. He looked around anxiously and saw that everyone else looked terrified too. No one was talking much except Hermione Granger, who was whispering very fast about all the spells she'd learned and wondering which one she'd need. Harry tried hard not to listen to her. He'd never been more nervous. Never. Not even when he had to take a school report home to the Dursleys saying that he somehow turned his teacher's wig blue. He kept his eyes fixed on the door. Any second now, Professor McGonagall will come back and lead him to his doom. Then something happened, which made him jump about a foot in the air, and several people behind him screamed. "What the?" he gasped. So did the people around him. About 20 ghosts had just streamed through the back wall. Pearly white and slightly transparent, they glided across the room, talking to each other and hardly glancing at the first years. They seemed to be arguing. What looked like a fat little monk was saying, "Oh, forgive and forget. I say, we ought to give him a second chance." "My dear Friar, haven't we given Peeves all the chances he deserves? He gives us all a bad name, you know. He's not even really a ghost. I say, what are you all doing here?" A ghost wearing a ruff and tights had suddenly noticed the first years. Nobody answered. "New students," said Fat Friar, smiling around at them. "About to be sorted, I suppose." A few people nodded, mutely. "Hope I'll see you in Hufflepuff," said the friar. "My old house, you know." "Move along now," said a sharp voice. "The sorting ceremony's about to start." Professor McGonagall had returned. One by one, the ghosts floated away through the opposite wall. "Now, form a line," Professor McGonagall told the first years, "and follow me." Feeling oddly as though his legs had turned to lead, Harry got in line behind a boy with sandy hair, with Ron behind him, and they walked out of the chamber, back across the hall, and through a pair of double doors into the great hall. Harry had never even imagined such a strange and splendid place. It was lit by thousands and thousands of candles, which were floating in midair over 4 long tables where the rest of the students were sitting. These tables were laid with glittering golden plates and goblets. At the top of the hall was another long table where the teachers were sitting. Professor McGonagall led the first years up here so that they came to a halt in a line facing the other students, with the teachers behind them. The hundreds of faces staring at them looked like pale lanterns in the flickering candlelight. Dotted here and there among the students, the ghosts shone misty silver. So all the people they're kind of looking at, are probably wondering. So there you can see some ghosts and stuff there. Mainly to avoid all the staring eyes, Harry looked upwards and saw a velvety black ceiling dotted with stars. He heard Hermione whisper, "It's bewitched to look like the sky outside. I read about it in Hogwarts, a history." It was hard to believe that there was a ceiling there at all, and that the great hall didn't simply open onto the heavens. Harry quickly looked down again at Professor McGonagall, silently placed a 4-legged stool in front of the first years. On top of the stool, she put a pointed wizard's hat. The hat was patched and frayed and extremely dirty, and Petunia wouldn't let it in the house. Maybe they had to try and get a rabbit out of it, Harry thought wildly. That seemed the sort of thing, noticing that everyone in the hall was now staring at the hat. He stared at it too. For a few seconds, then there was complete silence. Then the hat twitched. A rip near the brim opened like a mouth, and the hat began to sing. So this is different than the movie, right? Because it's a bit of an interesting, unique song. Certainly original. I'll try and do it justice. Oh, you might not think I'm pretty, but don't you judge what you see. I'll eat myself if you can find a hat that's smarter than me. You can keep your bowlers black, your top hat sleek and tall, for I'm the Hogwarts sorting hat and I can cap a ball. There's nothing hidden in your head the sorting hat can't see. So try me on and I will tell you where you ought to be. You might belong in Gryffindor, where dwell the brave at heart. Their daring, nerve, and chivalry set Gryffindor apart. Oh, you might belong in Hufflepuff, where they are just and loyal. Those patient Hufflepuff are true and unafraid of toil. And yet in wise old Ravenclaw, if you've a ready mind, where those of wit and learning will always find their kind, or perhaps in Slytherin, you'll make your real friends. Those cunning folk use any means to achieve their ends. So put me on, don't be afraid, and don't get in a flap. You're in safe hands, though I have none, for I'm a thinking cap. What do you guys make of it? So that's in the book, again, not the movie, but it says here, the whole hall burst into applause as the hat finished its song. It bowed to each of the 4 tables and then became quite still again. So we've got to just try on the hat? Ron whispered to Harry. I'll kill Fred. He was going on about wrestling a troll. Harry smiled weakly. Yes, trying on the hat was a lot better than having to do a spell, but he did wish that they could have tried it on without everyone watching. The hat seemed to be asking rather a lot. Harry didn't feel brave or quick-witted or any of it at the moment. If only the hat had mentioned a house for people who felt a bit queasy, that would have been the one for him. Professor McGonagall now stepped forward, holding a long roll of parchment. When I call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted, she said. Abbott, Hannah. A pink-faced girl with blonde pigtails stumbled out of line, put on the hat, which fell right down over her eyes, and sat down. A moment's pause. Oh, here you go. There it is. Okay, let's see. Yeah. Hufflepuff, shouted the hat. The table went on the right, cheered and clapped as Hannah went to sit down at the Hufflepuff table. Harry saw the ghost of the fat friar waving merrily at her. Bones, Susan, Hufflepuff. The hound shouted again, and Susan scuttled off to sit next to Hannah. Boot, Terry, Ravenclaw. The table second from the left clapped. This time, several Ravenclaws stood up to shake hands with Terry as he joined them. Brocklehurst, Mandy, went to Ravenclaw too, but Brown Lavender became the first new Gryffindor, and the table on the far left exploded with cheers. Harry could see Ron's twin brothers catcalling. Bulstrode, Millicent, then became a Slytherin. Perhaps it was Harry's imagination. After all, he'd heard about Slytherin, but he thought they looked an unpleasant lot. I agree. He was starting to feel definitely sick now. He remembered being picked for teams during sports lessons at his old school. He'd always been last to be chosen, not because he was no good, but because no one wanted Dudley to think they liked him. Finch, Fletchley, Justin, Hufflepuff. Sometimes Harry noticed that the hat shouted out the house at once, but others it took a little while to decide. Finnegan, Seamus, I think it's Seamus. The sandy-hair boy next to Harry in line sat on the stool for almost a whole minute before the hat declared him a Gryffindor. Granger, Hermione. Hermione almost ran into the stool and jammed the hat eagerly on her head. Gryffindor! Gryffindor! Shouted the hat. Ron groaned. A horrible thought struck Harry, as horrible thoughts always do when you're very nervous. What if he wasn't chosen at all? Would you worry about that? I don't know if I would, because I know who I am. So, I mean, I'd be worried that I would go someplace I didn't want to go, because that seemed to happen to me a lot. I'd want to go someplace that was good and that welcomed me. So I think that would be the worry I had. But what do you think? What if he wasn't chosen at all? What if he just sat there with the hat over his eyes for ages until Professor McGonagall jerked it off his head and said there had obviously been a mistake and he'd better get back on the train? When Neville Longbottom, the boy who kept losing his toad, was called, he fell over on his way to the stool. The hat took a long time to decide with Neville. When it finally shouted, "Gryffindor!" Neville ran off, still wearing it, and had to jog back amid gales of laughter to give it to MacDougall Morag. Malfoy swaggered forward when his name was called and got his wish at once. The hat barely touched his head when it screamed, "Slytherin." Malfoy went to join his friends Crabbe and Goyle, looking pleased with himself. There weren't many people left now. Moon, Knott, Parkinson, then a pair of twin girls, Patil and Patil, then Perk, Sally Ann, and then at last Potter, Harry. As Harry stepped forward, whispers suddenly broke out like little hissing fires all over the hall. "Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter?" The last thing Harry saw before the hat dropped over his eyes was the hall full of people craning to get a good look at him. Next second, he was looking at the black inside of the hat. He waited. Said a small voice in his ear. "Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent. Oh, my goodness, yes. And a nice thirst to prove yourself. Now that's interesting. So where shall I put you?" There it is. Okay. I don't know. Would you guys be all like worried right now? I'd be telling him where I want to go. Harry gripped the edges of the stool and thought, "Not Slytherin, not Slytherin." "Not Slytherin, eh?" said the small voice. "Are you sure? You could be great, you know. It's all here in your head. And Slytherin will help you on the way to greatness. No doubt about that. No? Well, if you're sure, better be Gryffindor." That's what I want. Yeah. So I hope I would get that. I think I would. And man, they got a good uniform too, because that is important. Essential, really. Harry heard the hat shout the last word to the whole hall. He took off the hat and walked shakily towards the Gryffindor table. He was so relieved to have been chosen and not put in Slytherin. He hardly noticed that he was getting the loudest cheer yet. Percy, the prefect, got up and shook his hand vigorously. Then the Weasley twins yelled, "We got Potter! We got Potter!" Harry sat down opposite the ghost in the ruff he'd seen earlier. The ghost patted his arm, giving Harry the sudden horrible feeling that he had just plunged it into a bucket of ice-cold water. Well, that is what they say when you meet a ghost. They're very cold. That's what I heard. He could see the high table properly now. At the end nearest him sat Hagrid, who caught his eye and gave him a thumbs up. Harry grinned back, and then in the center of the high table, in a large golden chair, sat Albus Dumbledore. Harry recognized him at once from the card he got out of the chocolate frog on the train. Dumbledore's silver hair was the only thing in the whole hall that shone as brightly as the ghost's. Harry spotted Professor Quirrell, too, the nervous young man from the leaky cauldron. He was looking very peculiar in a large red turban. Yeah. And now there were only 3 people left to be sorted. Turpin Lisa became a Ravenclaw. Then it was Ron's turn. He was pale green by now. Harry crossed his fingers under the table, and a second later the hat shouted, "Gryffindor!" And of course in the movie, you know, they say, "Another Weasley. I know just what to do with you." And so that's how he ends up in Gryffindor. Because his whole family was in Gryffindor. Harry clapped loudly with the rest as Ron collapsed into the chair next to him. Isn't that wonderful? So they're going to be together. "Well done, Ron. Excellent," said Percy Weasley pompously across Harry as Zubini Blaze made it as a Slytherin. Professor McGonagall rolled up her scroll and took the sorting hat away. Now that's a weird-looking sorting hat. What do you guys make of it? And then you can see the candles as well. So let's see what happens then. Yeah, here we are. Oh, one of my favorite parts in the whole story. Harry looked down at his empty golden plate. He had only just realized how hungry he was. The pumpkin pasties seemed ages ago. Albus Dumbledore got to his feet. He was beaming at the students, his arms opened wide, as if nothing could have pleased him more than to see all of them here. "Welcome," he said. "Welcome to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our banquet, I would like to say a few words, and here they are. Nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak. Thank you." He sat back down. Everyone clapped and cheered. Harry didn't know whether to laugh or not. "Is he a bit mad?" he asked Percy uncertainly. "Mad?" said Percy airily. "He's a genius." "Best wizard in the world." But yes, he's a bit mad. "Potatoes, Harry?" Harry's mouth fell open. The dishes in front of him were now piled with food. He had never seen so many things he liked to eat on one table. Roast beef and roast chicken and pork chops and lamb chops and sausages and bacon and steak and boiled potatoes and roast potatoes and chips, but they actually mean fries. But maybe they have potato chips too. Yorkshire pudding, which is really good. Peas, carrots, gravy, ketchup, and for some strange reason, mint humbugs. They're a weird mint candy. They're kind of old-fashioned. Maybe your nanny might like it, like your grandma. You know, maybe somebody like that. The Dursleys had never exactly starved Harry, but he'd never been allowed to eat as much as he liked. Dudley had always taken anything that Harry really wanted, even if it made him sick. Harry piled his plate with a little bit of everything except the humbugs and began to eat. It was all delicious. What do you guys think you would do? I know I would just enjoy it. I would be in awe of all the good things that were there. I think I would. "That does look good," said the ghost in the ruff sadly, watching Harry cut up his steak. "Can't you? I haven't eaten for nearly 500 years, said the ghost. I don't need to, of course, but one does miss it. And I don't think I've introduced myself. Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington at your service, resident ghost of Gryffindor Tower." "I know who you are," said Ron suddenly. "My brothers told me about you. You're nearly Headless Nick." "I would prefer you call me Sir Nicholas de Mimsy," the ghost began stiffly. But sandy-haired Seamus Finnegan interrupted. "Nearly headless? How can one be nearly headless?" Now, in the movie, you know it was Hermione that said that, and then there's like super gross scene where he takes his head off. Sir Nicholas looked extremely miffed, which is angry, as if their little chat wasn't going at all the way he wanted. Like this, he said irritably, and he pulled his head, and he pulled his left ear, and then his whole head swung off his neck and fell onto his shoulder as if it was on a hinge. Someone had obviously tried to behead him, but had not done it properly. Looking pleased at the sun's look on the faces, Nearly Headless Nick flipped his head back on his neck, coughed, and said, "So, new Gryffindors. I hope you're going to help us win the Gryffindor championship this year. The house championship. Gryffindors have never gone so long without winning. Slytherin have gotten the cup 6 years in a row. The bloody Baron's becoming almost unbearable. He's the Slytherin ghost." Harry looked over at the Slytherin table and saw a horrible ghost sitting there with blank, staring eyes, a gaunt face, and robes stained with silver blood. He was right next to Malfoy, who, Harry was pleased to see, didn't look too pleased with the seating arrangements. How did he get covered in blood?" asked Seamus with great interest. "I've never asked," said Nearly Headless Nick delicately. "Oh my goodness, look at this food. Doesn't that look like a Christmas dinner? Or maybe some other wonderful banquet. Are you guys hungry right now? I could eat. I can eat. Okay, where are we? Yeah, okay. Yeah. When everyone had eaten as much as they could, the remains of the food just faded from the plates, leaving them sparkling clean as before. A moment later, the puddings appeared. Now, pudding doesn't just mean pudding, like chocolate pudding, which I love, or caramel pudding, which is interesting, or even vanilla pudding. Not pistachio. Although some people like it. What is your favorite pudding? Yeah. Anyway, okay, so pudding is dessert in the UK. It can mean all kinds of things. It can mean all kinds of dessert food, but they call it pudding. Blocks of ice cream in every flavor you can think of. Apple pies, treacle tarts, chocolate eclairs, jam donuts, trifle, strawberries, jelly, rice pudding. Wow, what would you pick? I think I would pick the eclairs because I'm such a fan of donuts, and maybe banana fudge ice cream, which is one of my favorites. Yeah, you can really buy it, I think. Let's see what else is a good ice cream. Cotton candy is a good ice cream, too. You can't go wrong with the solid chocolate, you know. Solid chocolate's pretty good. Maybe Rocky Road even. I don't know. What do you think? It could be some very good ice creams. Oh my God, eggnog. Eggnog. Okay, where were we? Oh yeah. As Harry helped himself to a treacle tart, which is kind of like a molasses tart a little bit, or some kind of thing like that, but it's British. The talk turned to their families. "I'm half and half," said Seamus. My dad's a muggle. My mom's didn't tell him she was a witch until they were after they married. Bit of a nasty shock for him. The others laughed. What about you, Neville?" said Ron. Well, my gran, she brought me up, and, she's a witch," said Neville, "but the family thought I was all muggle for ages. My great-uncle Algie kept trying to catch me off my guard and forced some magic out of me. He pushed me off the end of Blackpool Pier once. I nearly drowned. But nothing happened until I was 8. Great-uncle Algie came around for tea, and he was hanging me out of the upstairs window by the ankles when my great-auntie Enid offered him a meringue, and he accidentally let go. But I bounced all the way down the garden and into the road. They were all really pleased. Gran was crying, she was so happy, and you should have seen their faces when I got in here. They thought I might not be magic enough to come, Great Uncle Algy was so pleased he bought me my toad. Okay, here you go. This is a top secret quiz answer question. Answer question? Question answer. What is a squib? I just found that out. It's somebody who is not magical, but they come from magical parents. So it's the opposite of Hermione, whose parents are dentists, but she's a witch. So kind of amazing, isn't it? On Harry's other side, Percy Weasley and Hermione were talking about lessons. Oh, I do hope they start right away. There's so much to learn. I'm particularly interested in transfiguration. You know, turning something into something else, of course. It's supposed to be very difficult. And then he's like, well, you'll be starting small. Just matches into needles, that sort of thing. Harry, who was starting to feel warm and sleepy, looked up at the high table again. Hagrid was drinking deeply from his goblet. Professor McGonagall was talking to Professor Dumbledore. Professor Quirrell, in his absurd turban, was talking to a teacher with greasy black hair, a hooked nose, and sallow skin. Who do you think that is? It all happened very quickly. The hook-nosed teacher looked past Quirrell's turban straight into Harry's eyes, and a sharp, hot pain shot across the scar on Harry's forehead. Ouch! Harry clapped a hand to his head. What is it? Nothing. The pain had gone as quickly as it had come. Harder to shake off was the feeling that Harry had gotten from the teacher's look. A feeling that he didn't like Harry at all. Who's that teacher talking to Professor Quirrell? He asked Percy. Oh, that's right. You know Quirrell already, do you? No wonder he's looking so nervous. That's Professor Snape. He teaches potions, but he doesn't want to. Everyone knows he's after Quirrell's job. Knows an awful lot about the dark arts, Snape. Harry watched Snape for a while, but Snape didn't look at him again. At last, the puddings, too, disappeared, and Professor Dumbledore got to his feet again. The hall fell silent. Ahem. Just a few more words now that we're all fed and watered. I have a few start-of-term notices to give you. First years should note that the forest in the grounds is forbidden to all pupils. A few of our older students would do well to remember that as well. Dumbledore's twinkling eyes flashed in the direction of the Weasley twins. I have also been asked by Mr. Filch, the caretaker, to remind you all that no magic should be used between classes in the corridors. And Quidditch trials will be held in the second week of the term. Anyone interested in playing for their house teams should contact Madam Hooch. I don't know. What do you think? Do you like Quidditch? Oh, here we are. Let me look. Not really very much on this page. Just a couple things. So, let's keep going. And finally, I must tell you that this year, the third floor corridor on the right-hand side is out of bounds to anyone who does not wish to die a very painful death. Harry laughed, but he was one of the few who did. He's not serious, he muttered to Percy. Must be. Percy said, frowning at Dumbledore. It's odd because he always gives us a reason why we're not allowed to go somewhere. The forest full of dangerous beasts. Everyone knows that. I do think he might have told us prefects at least. Would you want to be a prefect? I'd want to be a prefect so much. I think I'd be good at it. And now, before we go to bed, let us sing the school song, cried Dumbledore. Harry noticed that the other teacher's smile had become rather fixed. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd duck song, but you guys can see what you think. It's a bit Weird. So let's try it. Dumbledore gave his wand a little flick, as if he was trying to get the fly off the end, and a golden ribbon flew out of it, which rose high into the air above the tables and twisted itself snake-like into words. Everyone picked their favorite tune, said Dumbledore, and off we go. And the school bellowed. Hogwarts, Hogwarts, Hoggy, Hoggy, Hogwarts. Teach us something, please. Whether we be old and bald or young with scabby knees. Our heads could do with filling with some interesting stuff, for now they're bare and full of air and dead flies and bits of fluff. Yeah, gross. So teach us something worth knowing. Bring back what we forgot. Just do your best, we'll do the rest, and learn until our brains rot. That's a bad song. That is a bad song. I think that's why they kicked it out for the movie. Everyone finished the song at different times. At last, only the Weasley twins were left singing along to the very slow funeral march. Dumbledore conducted their last few lines with his wand, and then they had finished, and he was one of those who clapped the loudest. Ah, music, he said, wiping his eyes. A magic beyond all we do here. And now bedtime. Off you trot. The Gryffindor first years followed Percy through the chattering crowds, out of the great hall, and up the marble staircase. Harry's legs were like lead again, but only because he was so tired and full of food. He was too sleepy to even be surprised that the people in the portraits along the corridors whispered and pointed as they passed, or that twice Percy led them through doorways hidden behind sliding panels and hanging tapestries. They climbed more staircases, yawning and dragging their feet, and Harry was just wondering how much farther they had to go when they came to a sudden halt. Well, where do you guys think they are? Yeah, they're at their Gryffindor Tower place, right outside. A bundle of walking sticks were floating in midair ahead of them, and as Percy took a step towards them, they started throwing themselves at him. Well, that's not good. Is it? A bundle of walking sticks was floating around in midair. Oh, I said that part, yeah. Peeves. Oh, I hate Peeves. Who hates Peeves? I'm so glad they took Peeves out of the movie. Percy whispered to the first years. A poltergeist. He raised his voice. Peeves, show yourself. A loud, rude sound, like the air being let out of a balloon, answered. Do you want me to go to the Bloody Baron? There was a pop, and a little man with wicked dark eyes and a wide-open mouth appeared, floating cross-legged in the air, clutching the walking sticks. Ooh, he said with an evil cackle. Echo firsties, what fun! He swooped suddenly at them. They all ducked. Go away, Peeves, or the Baron'll hear about this. I mean it. He barked Percy. Peeves stuck out his tongue and vanished, dropping the walking sticks on Neville's head. They heard him zooming away, rattling coats of armor as he passed. Oh my goodness. Oh, I don't think I showed you this one, did I? There you are. You can see the ribbon. You can see the golden ribbon, although it's kind of a different color. You want to watch out for Peeves, said Percy as they set off again. The Bloody Baron's the only one that can control him. He won't even listen to us prefects. Here we are. At the very end of the corridor hung a portrait of a very fat woman in a pink silk dress. Password, she said. Caput Draconis, said Percy, and the portrait swung forward to reveal a round hole in the wall. They all scrambled through it. Neville needed a leg up and found themselves in the Gryffindor common room, a cozy round room full of squashy armchairs. Percy directed the girls through one door to their dormitory and the boys through another. At the top of the spiral staircase, they were obviously in one of the towers. They found their beds at last. 5 four-poster beds hung with red, deep velvet curtains. Oh man, you guys remember in the movie? That was really cool. Let's see. Oh, there they are. Their trunks had already been brought up. Too tired to talk much, they pulled on their pajamas and fell into bed. I don't know, would you be tired? I probably would be. Great food, isn't it? Oh, hang on, you guys. Can you see me? Okay. Great food, isn't it? Ron muttered to Harry through the hangings. Get off, Scabbers. He's chewing my sheets. Harry was going to ask Ron if he'd had any of the treacle tart, but he fell asleep almost at once. Have you ever just been so tired? I think that's what happened with Ron and with Harry. They were both pretty tired. Perhaps Harry had eaten a bit too much because he had a very strange dream. Let's think about what his dream was. He was wearing Professor Quirrell's turban, which kept talking to him, telling him he must transfer to Slytherin at once because it was his destiny. Harry told the turban he didn't want to be in Slytherin. It got heavier and heavier. He tried to pull it off, but it tightened painfully. Then there was Malfoy laughing at him as he struggled with it. Then Malfoy turned into the hook-nosed teacher, which we know as Snape, whose laugh became high and cold. Then there was a burst of green light, and Harry woke up, sweating and shaking. Oh, poor Harry. Man, that looks like he was having a bit of a nightmare. He rolled over and fell asleep again. And when he woke up the next day, he didn't remember the dream at all. So there you go. There is the woman, if you remember. And it actually opens up to see the inside. How cozy is that? Pretty cozy, you guys. And that is our chapter about the Sorting Hat. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really enjoyed sharing it with you. And I will see you again soon. Maybe for Halloween. Who knows? Bye-bye. See you later.